Hi, this is Erin from BlossyB. Welcome to my channel. The plan for this video is to create a rustic piece of timber art using Tasmanian Huon Pine and transferring a gorgeous wombat image to the timber using ModPodge. First thing I need to do is to find the perfect piece of timber, and I know exactly where to go. This is the Margate Train. It's in a little town just a few minutes from where I live, and it's an amazing complex with the train and all the carriages with little shops and businesses. Just a beautiful place. And I was lucky enough to speak to John Simmons, who's the owner, and he's allowed me to take footage of these. In fact, I used to have a little shop in one of the carriages. It was called Go Again Kids, and it was a recycled children's clothing. So a little bit of history there. And look, in here is a huge shed, massive shop with amazing like antiques and quirky finds and bits and pieces. But out the back is the Southern Timbers retail showroom, and look at this. So these pieces we're looking at there are beautiful sassafras. We've got Huon Pine. They mill some of the pieces so that they are just beautiful timber pieces. Others they keep with their raw edges. And look, you could spend a very long time here. And I will add, a great deal of money. However, some of these slabs, you could just see them as a beautiful table or kitchen bench or something. And I think for what you're getting, they're not that expensive. The thing is that Huon Pine, which is the timber that I'm particularly after, they're some of the oldest living organisms on Earth. They're the second tallest tree in the world. They are incredibly long-lived, but incredibly slow to grow. They only grow about 1 millimetre in girth per year, and they only begin to reproduce when they're 600 to 800 years old. So you can see why they take a long time. In fact, they live, we've got specimens here in southern Tasmania which are over 2,000 years old, and they reach up to 30 metres tall. And this timber is just, I wish we had smell-o-vision. If you could smell the fragrant sap of Huon Pine, I would recognise it anywhere on the planet amongst any other smell. It has a really high oil content, and that means that this golden, beautiful wood can be bent and sculpted, can be shaped and worked. And the other thing is too that the tree is waterproof, and the sap also repels insects. So, as you can probably guess, it has been a massive popular tree for shipbuilding over the last couple of 100 years of colonial settlement in Tasmania. And unfortunately, that popularity meant that it was almost timbered into extinction. But luckily, conservation techniques and laws have been introduced. It's now illegal to cut down living Huon pine trees, and some people, like the Southern Timbers guys, have permission to go into areas where there are trees that are down on the ground. Sometimes I know too that trees are removed out of water that have been in water for sometimes hundreds of years, and then they work through this timber, choosing pieces that can be used for furniture or for craft. And it's so cute because on their Instagram and Facebook page at the moment there's a recent post, and that could even be the little bag of timber that I ended up purchasing. So I paid $40 for a bag of Huon Pine pieces, and I really wanted to find just a perfect little piece which had that gorgeous honey colour, but also with the live bark on it as well, because I'm really going for a rustic appearance here. With thanks to my son, we were able to do a little sort of a stop motion unbagging, and this is the piece that I chose. So after just a quick trim and a light sand, we are ready to go. I found this gorgeous image of a wombat taken by Michael Gerard, and it's made available for free to use on Unsplash, of a wombat up at Cradle Mountain. I used to live and work at Cradle Mountain, so this is very dear to my heart. And I've just measured the timber, so you can see there on the left of the screen the timber that's been cut to size, and I have imported it into Microsoft Publisher just so I can get that correct sizing, and now I'm just printing it out on my Canon Pixma DeskJet printer, and then we're ready to go. I wanted to show you this amazing silicone mat. I got these from Kmart in Australia. They were $10. I got a couple, and they are pet mats. And look how huge they are. I wish crafting suppliers would look at this and think, yes, we need bigger than just the little 30 centimetre wide ones. I'm loving working with these. They're really thick and great quality. I've noticed they're out on clearance at the moment for $7. I really hope they continue doing them, but that's the service I'm working on today. So I'm trimming my beautiful wombat image, just using a pair of scissors, and of course the well-known teacher trick of just cutting the one piece of paper. So instead of having all the little bits falling on the floor, you just get one large bit. So the idea is that it is pretty much identical to the size of the timber now that I've had the timber trimmed to size, and all I've done with the timber at this stage is given it, just sanded the edges gently and given it a clean, just with a damp cloth, and now it's dry. So this is what the image is looking like, and I'm going to now just place it on a piece of paper towel just to protect my surface a little bit more, and then we're going to be using ModPodge in matte, and we're going to apply the ModPodge evenly over the entire surface of the paper. This is just normal copy paper. I think in Australia it's 80 GSM. Nothing special at all. You definitely don't want to use thicker paper or card or anything like that, because this process we are going to be removing the paper afterwards using water. So getting on with the ModPodge brushing. My goal is to just get a really nice coating of the ModPodge all over the image, and I just sort of go backwards and forwards until I'm happy that it's all covered. And then I also put a little bit of ModPodge onto the actual timber itself, and then I'm ready to go ahead and apply the damp paper face down, so the ModPodge side down onto the timber, and smooth it all out. While I'm doing that, I'd love to tell you a little bit more about wombats. The wombat that's in the photograph I'm using is a bare-nosed wombat, also known as a common wombat, which I think is really rude. They're not common, they're magnificent. It's the world's largest burrowing herbivorous mammal, and in fact it is such an amazing burrower that early colonisers of Tasmania called it a badger, and sometimes you still hear that term associated with them today. However, the closest relative of the wombat is in fact the koala. So wombats have a short tail and legs and a really gorgeous characteristic waddle and a cuddly appearance, and they become one of the most endearing of our Australian native animals. So the bare-nosed wombat occurs in Tasmania, but also in other parts of Australia. And there are two other species of wombat in Australia, but both of those are on the mainland only. And they're the southern hairy-nosed wombat and the northern hairy-nosed wombat, which is sadly a threatened species. So the ones on the mainland, the bare-nosed wombats, grow massive. They've been recorded up to 1.2 metres in length and up to 35 kilos in weight. Our Tasmanian ones are not quite as chonky, so they average about 85 centimetres in length and 20 kilos in weight. As I mentioned, they have short little legs and they have large paws and very long, strong claws. And they use these to excavate their burrows. They have really interesting teeth as well. They differ from all other marsupials because they've got a single pair of upper and lower incisors, the front teeth, and they never ever grind away as they are rootless and they never stop growing, and which is just as well because wombats use them for cutting things, chewing with their teeth, much like a beaver. And being marsupials, female wombats have a pouch that in their case opens backwards, and that is brilliant. It has evolved that way to prevent dirt and debris entering while they're burrowing. The wombat's bottom, or its rump, is covered in really tough, thick skin. And if they're threatened, they'll dive into a nearby burrow or a hollow log, and they use its rump as protection from the teeth and claws of its attackers. And wombats are very well known to be capable of crushing attackers against the burrow roof. In Tasmania, their natural predators are Tasmanian devils, although they normally prefer to feast on deceased animals, and eagles. Of course, our amazing Tasmanian tiger, now extinct, the thylacine, possibly also once preyed upon them. But they don't have a lot of natural predators. Anyway, let's get back to this project. After smoothing the image down onto the timber, I leave it to dry. In this case, it took, I left it for about an hour. It probably was dry a lot sooner. Now comes the magic. So I'm using a bowl of water and I'm just using my fingers as well to dampen all of that paper. Now, the bottom and the top, where I've got the rough edge of bark, I can be a little bit more rough, anywhere where there's an overhang, but everywhere else you want to be really quite gentle. So what we're doing is we're just rubbing that paper, which is now damp, until little pieces come off, and it'll come off in little rolls as I'm just showing you there. And the idea is to do this as with as light a pressure as you can, because you don't want to tear through the paper. And if you do try this, or you've tried it before, that's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's just part of this process. So you just need to be aware of that. And I'm just, as I'm going, I'm popping the little bits that come off it into the bowl of water, and then just getting a little bit more fresh water onto there. Now, I wanted this particular piece of art to have a very faded vintage feel. I want it to be really like a shabby chic type of look. I didn't want a crisp, clear image. Now, you can get very clear images using this method, and in that case, I would strongly recommend that you use a laser printer to produce your image. And we've got a wonderful print shop not far from where I live, and they print them out for me. They can also print them onto A3 paper at high resolution, and you will get an ink that retains much more of its colour. So this is inkjet ink, and so of course during this process I am removing some ink as well as the paper, but that's the effect that I'm going for. So just remember that if you do try this yourself, if you would like a more vibrant image, then use a laser printer. If you're happy with the type of image that I'm looking for, then you can use your DeskJet printer. And so, as I said, I'm just going over and over very gently. And the best thing, in my opinion, is to just sort of do one complete go all over and then sit it to dry, because we don't want that paper to get so weak that it tears. So by letting it dry out again, it'll give it a chance to, regain some strength, and then you can have another go. Our wombat is looking so cute. Now, would you like to know the number one fact about wombats that the children at school get totally excited about and can't get over and never forget? They have square poo. That's right. They have cubed-shaped scats, which of course is the proper name for an animal's droppings, and they are left in areas to warn other wombats that that's their burrow or that's where they're coming and going from. And any new object that's in their home area is going to get marked with scat, particularly if it's elevated. So they love fallen trees. If there's fresh mushrooms or rocks or even a stick, they will do their best to crown that with a square poo. And these square poos are less likely to roll off from objects. So another amazing adaptation that these have made. Wombats are mostly a nocturnal animal, so they usually come out at night to graze, and when temperatures are lower, as well as sometimes in the late afternoon, or you might see them early of a morning. When it's cold, they can often be seen around about during the day, either grazing or they're just basking in the sun. And that's how I was so lucky back when I lived at Cradle Mountain to see dozens and dozens and dozens of different wombats. In fact, I used to have a little notebook, and I would actually try and figure out whether the wombat I was seeing was a new wombat to me or a different type of wombat, small, old, whatever. It was really amazing. And in some parts of Tasmania, though, we've got an amazing island off the east coast called Maria Island, and there they're more active during the day than at night. They've adapted to this. That's a really heavily protected space. And when they do graze, they graze for sort of 3 to 8 hours, and during that time they travel many, many kilometres. And even though they're a fairly solitary animal, you will often see wombats close proximity to each other, because of course their burrows and home ranges might have overlapped, and it's really exciting when you do see them. But if you do ever come to Tasmania, I strongly recommend Maria Island as your number one wombat viewing destination, and Cradle Mountain as your number two. I think to see, particularly up at Cradle Mountain, where they have the amazing boardwalks for people doing the bushwalking through the Cradle Mountain Lake St Clair National Park. And when you're walking along there and all of a sudden in front of you, you see trundle, 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 a wombat just going along, doing its thing, doing all the wombat stuff. They're pretty magical. Now, just a top tip for when you're finished doing your first pass over with water. I tip my water out into another bowl through some paper towel, and that just catches all of that paper pulp. So then I can just pop that into the recycling bin or the FOGO food waste bin, and then the water's clear of any of that. And now we'll let it dry, and then we'll come back and have another go. It really doesn't take very long to dry, and this is what we've got at the moment. Now, when you come back to this, a lot of that white that you can see is still residual paper that needs to be removed. But I'm going to make some artistic choices here because in my mind, I really want this to be an almost sepia image. I want it to look old and I want it to look as if it's faded and, you know, really vintage, and that it's, you know, maybe even someone's drawing or something. I've just got this vision in my mind. So I know that what I'm going to need to do is to try and lighten it. But first of all, I'm going to use watercolour pencils just to go in and add a few little hand-drawn details here and there, just to give me that look. And watercolour pencils are great because you can use them directly onto a wet surface, or you can use them dry and then you can wet them. And you'll see me going through, and every now and then I'm using my finger or a piece of paper towel just to smudge areas. And this is just all about just trying to come up with that overall appearance that I'm aiming for. And if you were doing an image like this that you wanted really vibrant, and you'd done it, for example, with a laser print rather than a jet set print, you can also use this technique to add really highlighted pops of colour that make it just stand out and not look like a photograph anymore. It just makes it look more like almost an original piece of art. So once I've done that, I've now got the issue that it's still not looking light enough. So I decided to sit it out in the sun for a couple of hours. I really want to see if I can fade it naturally. And here we are. I'm really happy with this. So at the moment, this is completely dry, the timber and the surface. And I'm going to use the DecoArt Duraclear Ultra Matte. And this is a polyurethane varnish. It's a water wash up, so it's really great to use. And this is going to really protect my image, and it will also decrease some of those white patchy areas. So they are still areas that I haven't rubbed off all the paper, but I just don't want to go any further with that part of the process because I can tell I'm getting close to being in near the wood, and I really want to keep it all that sort of gorgeous honey colour, like a sepia honey colour, if you know what I mean. So it's in line with that beautiful colour of Huon Pine, and it's also got that aged, vintage, washed out sort of sepia look. So I start off applying the varnish just with my fingers, and then I decide to use a brush as well, just to kind of see which I think gives me the best look. And I know I'm going to want to use a brush on the natural parts of the bark because I don't want to risk getting any splinters or anything. I have given those quite a stiff brush to get, you know, remove any splinters, but it is still a natural wood edge. So I just need to be careful with that. So yeah, so after doing this, I'm going to set this aside. I'd really like to get a couple of coats onto it so that I know that it is really protected. And so I'll set this to just let the varnish dry. You can normally reapply this in around about 1 hour, and it's one of those products that goes on white, and as it dries it goes clear. And I chose the Ultra Matte rather than the gloss, which I've also got, because I really don't want it to look modern and shiny. I want it to look old and beaten and battered and just something that I don't know, we don't really have attics in modern houses in Tasmania, but you know, you could go up to the attic and find it and think, oh, did great grandpa make that? Anyway, we'll give this time to dry and then I'll come back and do the next coat. After that coat of varnish dried, despite my best intentions, I still felt it didn't look as natural as I wanted it to do. So I'm just using as the last top the Buan Nicole Sealer Wax, and I'm just applying it with my fingers, giving it a generous rub in, and then I'm going to remove the excess and buff with a paper towel. Now, I know that this look is not going to be what many of you are into, and I totally get that. But as for me wanting something that was faded and old and sort of barely there, and you know, that sepia aged look, I'm really happy with it. But I will do another video very shortly with a different look for you so that you can see what can be achieved. And thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much to my subscribers. I've just had the most amazing couple of days reading through comments on my recent Froggy Friday video, and also my octopus overload video. And it just really hits home. Some of you have been with me right from the start, and it means the world to me. And when I see your name pop up, I'm like, oh, I love it. So I did want to just give you that acknowledgement. It means a lot to me. If you're new to my channel, feel free to subscribe. Love to have you as part of the BlossyB family. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, thumbs up, and I'll show you the final result at the end, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.